Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really digging into a fascinating stack of sources. They reveal some, well, pretty surprising connections between things like economic stability, cultural shifts, and even some innovative solutions. We're drawing insights from places like Argentina and the UK primarily.
Exactly. And our goal here really is to pull out the key nuggets of knowledge from all of this. We want to get a handle on what actually underpins long-term societal resilience, stability, hopefully helping you make sense of some complex global trends.
Yeah, and we've got quite a mix of material economic reports, some really interesting cultural commentary, even discussions on new tech. Is definitely an exploration that goes, way beyond the usual headlines. Okay, so let's jump right into Argentina. It's always such a compelling place to look at, isn't it? Our sources are highlighting the recent economic picture under President Milei. Specifically, that inflation has dropped. Dropped dramatically from what were described as extreme levels. And this isn't just abstract. The key thing is it's giving people breathing room to plan and save. That's where it gets really interesting for everyone living there. Think what that means day to day.
It's huge, yeah. The sources suggest the stability, it could slow emigration and maybe even help rebuild social fabric. When people see a future, they're, less likely to leave. That allows communities to maybe start healing.
Right.
But it's important to note the reports are cautious too. They say problems remain. Things like cultural erosion and crime won't be fixed quickly. It shows how deep these issues run.
Yeah, it's never just one thing, is it? And speaking of those deeper issues, the sources bring up some interesting cultural commentary on Argentina. There's this observation about a drift towards Latin American reggaeton culture, which, according to the source, some people there see as eroding its historically European-rooted culture. It makes you think, what does a shift like that really signify? It's more than just music.
Definitely. And it's interesting because the material draws a parallel. It identifies similar patterns in the UK. Like Argentina, you've got a place where, strong cultural foundations seem to be showing cracks. The source attributes this to bad policy and societal division. It suggests these aren't isolated phenomena.
Okay, so let's dive into those UK specifics then. The sources get quite detailed. They talk about how local councils are financially set up to fail, essentially by mandates from the central government. It sounds like a systemic issue.
Right, like the structure itself creates problems for local areas trying to manage their finances.
And it goes on, linking this to public services. It says, many public services think policing, clean streets are poorly delivered despite high taxes. That's a really core question, isn't it? Why is that happening? You pay taxes, but the service quality isn't there.
It is a core question, and the sources tackle it directly. They suggest part of it is that structural council issue you mentioned, but they also point to the conversation shifting towards libertarian ideas as a response.
Libertarian ideas. How so?
Well, ideas like decentralisation, autonomy, and private provision of services, basically arguing that maybe the central government shouldn't be running everything, and perhaps private or more local solutions could work better.
Okay. Now, the sources also include something quite pointed, almost a deep roast, you could say. It's about modern communism in the UK. Specifically targeting the Revolutionary Communist Party and its figureheads. And just to be really clear here for you listening, we're impartially reporting what's in the source material. We're not endorsing these views.
Absolutely. The criticism laid out in the source is pretty sharp. It argues that while these communist groups identify some real problems in society, which is fair, they then push failed solutions. That's the core argument.
Failed solutions.
Yeah, and the critique goes on. It says they often ignore historical atrocities of communism, a major point. And critically, that they tend to seek power and money without viable economic models. So it's a strong condemnation of their approach, as presented in the source.
All right. So we've looked at these challenges. Economic instability, governance issues, critiques of existing systems and alternatives. What about solutions? Do the sources point towards anything innovative? And yes, one thing that comes up, tying back to inflation, is Bitcoin. It's framed specifically as a hedge against inflation. And the source draws a comparison that might click for many, how Argentinians historically use the U.S. dollar.
Yeah, that's a helpful comparison. And what's really insightful is the source's underlying critique of the fiat system. Government-issued money like the dollar, the pound, not backed by gold or anything. The argument is that in this system, capitalism gets distorted.
Distorted how?
By government control of money and this constant debasement, the value eroding over time through inflation. It's presented as a fundamental flaw in how our modern economies operate.
Okay, so how does Bitcoin fit in as a potential fix, according to the source? Well, it says Bitcoin restores trustless value transfer, meaning you don't need a bank in the middle, and it offers long-term saving potential. The idea is to tackle the root causes, not just the symptoms of economic instability.
Exactly. It's a systemic perspective. In these examples, Argentina, the UK, Bitcoin, they all feed into the broader takeaways the source material emphasizes. The first big one, societal decline often starts with monetary instability.
That really resonates. When money loses value, trust erodes everywhere, doesn't it?
It does. It hits confidence in institutions, in the future. It's foundational. That's why the source puts such a spotlight there.
And building on that, the source highlights that decentralization in both money and governance can create resilience. The idea being if you distribute control, the system isn't so vulnerable to failure at one central point.
Building robustness from the bottom up,
Yeah.
essentially. And finally, a really crucial point that ties it all together. Cultural values matter as much as economics in long-term stability.
So it's not just about the money or the politics.
Not at all, according to this material. Strong communities, shared beliefs, that cultural fabric, it's just as vital for keeping a society stable and resilient over the long haul.
Wow. Okay, so that kind of wraps up our deep dive for today. We've covered quite a bit those big economic shifts in Argentina, the public service issues in the UK, the critiques of different systems, and even Bitcoin as a potential alternative. It really shows those deep, often hidden links between money, culture, and how things are governed.
It really does. And maybe a final thought for you to consider based on all this. We've heard from the sources that decline often starts with money problems and that culture is just as important as economics for stability. So, thinking about societies today, what aspect do you feel is most vulnerable and where should we really be focusing our efforts to build that lasting resilience? Something to mull over?